What I thought I'd do is show you some information probably that you don't see maybe quite so easily somewhere else. So, UFE, you've all heard of UFE? Unaccounted for electricity. It's the slop that's left over in the system for every trading period at every grid connection point. So it represents a number of things. It represents inaccuracy in allocation methods, metering, emissions and data handling, errors, all of those little bits and pieces. Since we put global reconciliation in place on 1 May 2008, we've been able to actually track that UFE. Now we know that the value back in 99, 2000, 2001 was about $20 to $30 million a month. That was how much slop there was within the retail systems. Once we put global reconciliation in place, we could measure it very, very accurately, and I have been keeping a track of it. So it's an additional loss factor basically that's added onto every trading period. So if you're a trader, you want to know what the UFE is that you're actually trading over, because you need to build it into your retail pricing plan. But what is quite surprising, and this line here that you see here, that represents the monthly UFE total. This blue line here is a rolling average of UFE. And what is quite interesting actually is that when you look at the monthly values and you put a trend line through it, UFE is actually decreasing. Now the reason, well, there could be 4 reasons why it's decreasing. One is that traders are handling their metering data more accurately and more correctly. It could be due to the fact that metering installations are becoming certified and are becoming more accurate, because we already have about 52% of the country covered with AMI, and all of the larger installations have all been required to be certified. It could be quite a number of other factors that sort of build actually onto those. But what is really interesting is this trend that actually goes through. And it's actually worth quite a bit of money, you know, just small changes in percentages like this is worth somewhere in the region of, I don't know, $16 to $24 million a year, right back at about that point there. By the time we get through to full AMI everywhere and all the retail records are corrected, it could be a lot more money that is actually being accounted for more correctly within the electricity market. So probably one of the few markets in the world where we can actually trace that statistic. So very interesting. Another one is what's happening to submission information. And what I actually just wanted to show with this one here is every time we head into winter, we actually don't have a high degree of submission information. We actually have a high degree of UFE allocated, and it's because of the legacy meter reading arrangements that we actually have, where you have estimates going into the electricity market until reads are actually received. As we go through winter and we get revisions, we'll actually see this start to actually curve back up. Every year I noticed exactly the same trend, that there's a lead lag effect heading actually out of winter and into winter with UFE. The amount of non-half-hour information that enters the electricity market is actually decreasing quite markedly, and this graph here actually shows the amount of non-half-hour information entering the electricity market. This one here shows the amount of half-hour information entering the electricity market, and you can see it's actually increasing. Now, the reason for that is that some participants are choosing to settle AMI metering as half-hour instead of non-half-hour. And so it's just quite interesting to notice that change actually in behaviour. Embedded generation. This is for small non-half-hour embedded generation. About 99% of this volume is actually from photovoltaics. And so these are category 1 and 2 metering installations, but what is interesting is the increase that has been going on in actually embedded generation installations. And this is the volume which goes from a consumer's premise back into a local network. It's not the total volume that's generated. The total volume that's generated will be a lot more because there'll be a lot actually absorbed within a consumer's site. This is just the surplus amount. May 2008, and this will be June 2014. AMI installations. Some of you may actually see this one because we give it to anyone who bothers to ask us. This here starts at January 2008, and you can actually see the number of AMI installations actually increasing. We didn't have a window before May 2008 of how many AMI installations there actually were. That was when we created the AMI fields on the registry. But you can see the amount is increasing. There's about 16,000 AMI installations going in every month at the moment. Indications are that traders intend to get that to ramp up, and it'll be interesting to see if that actually does happen. There are just over 2 million ICP identifiers within the country. My estimates are that by 1 April 2015, which is our magic date that interim certification completes, there will still be 825,000 ICP identifiers with legacy metering actually on them, and about half of that number, like about 400,000 of them, are actually interim certified. One of the concerns we do have is around interim certification and how meter equipment providers will actually be dealing with the certification of interim metering installations. The ICP identifier switch rate, well, I haven't been able to update this one recently because we stopped producing stats for a while. But this here actually represents how many consumers a month were actually switching. I have removed the type 2 retailers from the mix. And you can see here this is a rolling average line. At about October 2008, there was a sudden increase in switching activity that remained for quite some time, which has now tended to level off a bit. New Zealand internationally is regarded as being a very hot market because of the high amount of switching that's actually being carried out. If we look at the time it takes to switch an ICP identifier between traders, this is what it looks like. Fortunately, I've only got figures back to January 2003 because it looks really a lot more ugly prior to that. So it's saying that at about January 2003, it was over 200 days for the average consumer to switch between retailers. And we went through various processes here and data cleanups and all bits and pieces. This is when global reconciliation actually went live. By that time, we had actually worked with a lot of participants to actually remove barriers to switching because there were a lot of market barriers, there were a lot of system barriers that were in place, and we got to our current switching process that served us very well. And at that time, our average switch rate had dropped to 10 business days, or just under 10 business days. As of the end of September, early October, the Electricity Commission Board regulated that 50% of switches had to be within 5 business days and 100% had to be within 10 business days. And true to form, the industry went away and they actually did it. And we tracked through here at an average now of around about 3.5 business days to switch a customer. Really excellent effort, fastest switching actually in the world. And it's one that I always get asked questions around about why does it work here but it takes 60 days somewhere else. And we have our own little secret, and that is we use estimates. Other people won't use estimates. And that's one of the key differences between ourselves and Australia at the moment. I mentioned that we track rejections. One of the big changes that Part 10 did was, instead of the gaining trader in a switch having to sort out metering issues, Part 10 reversed it, and it said for a retailer to be able to switch a customer out, they have to ensure that their information that they've got matches what's actually in the registry, otherwise the switch gets rejected. So every day I receive a file from the registry and I open it with great glee and I tell people in the office what the current switching stats actually are, and after they finish yawning we go and get a coffee. But this here represents the switch rejection rate, so it's when a switch completion file hits the registry and the registry rejects it back to the losing trader. So the losing trader has to go and do something to enable that switch to actually occur. So started off way up here, not as bad actually as I thought it would be initially, and you can see here that over time it's actually becoming better. Now that's an accumulation of some other statistics, and one of them is the mismatch on switch read installation, so it's error code number 693. And what this is it says the switch file hasn't got the number of metering installations attached to it when meter reads are required that the registry says there actually are on an ICP. So that gets rejected, and around about 1% of switches actually fail for that particular reason. Another one is the mismatch actually on the meter serial number. And one thing that the registry does is it looks into the completion of switch file that comes from a losing trader, and it says, I've got this meter serial number here, the meter owner says it's this serial number, they don't match, it sends the file actually back. That actually started out reasonably high, but you can see now it's actually down to half the level of when we started actually back in August. So that's sort of indicating, to me anyway, that records must be gradually improving, and I think as we get more and more AMI rolling out, we will see this continuing to decrease. 695, mismatch on switch read channel. This is when there are insufficient meter registers provided. That is, the registry contains more meter registers as being required for the settlement than what the losing trader provides reads actually for. It's about 0.3% or so of switches fail for that particular reason. And meter reading channel actually invalid. What this means is that the meter read that's provided by the losing trader is larger than the number of dials that's actually on the meter itself. Now that could be because the MEP information is incorrect. It could be that the retailer is actually reading the wrong meter. It could be that that there is more than one meter actually on the site, which is actually unrecognised by the MEP and by the retailer as well. They may be talking about different devices on the same site. You can see that that has been decreasing. Again, we're down to about 0.3% rejection actually for those. So those are just some quick stats that we don't actually publish. We will be putting them up on our website when we complete the series, so you can actually pick them up off there. Any questions? Great, thank you.